Summer 1483, the Tower of London. Two young boys played in the royal apartments. Edward, aged 12. Richard, aged 9. Sons of a king. Princes of England. They'd been told they were staying at the Tower for protection until Edward's coronation. He was supposed to be king now, but weeks passed. The boys were seen less often, playing in gardens, walking the walls. Then one day they weren't seen at all. The princes in the Tower had disappeared, and no one would say what happened to them. This is one of history's most infamous mysteries. Were the princes murdered? By whom, or did they escape? The answer might prove whether an English king was a child killer. April 1483, King Edward IV died suddenly at age 40. His 12-year-old son Edward was next in line. But a power struggle erupted. Young Edward's mother, Elizabeth Woodville, came from minor nobility. The old aristocracy resented her family's power. Edward IV's brother Richard, Duke of Gloucester, expected to be Lord Protector. But the Woodvilles wanted to rule through the boy king themselves. Richard intercepted young Edward on the road to London, arrested the Woodville escorts, took custody of his nephew. Elizabeth Woodville fled to Westminster Abbey with her younger son Richard. Age 9, the Abbey offered sanctuary. Richard brought Edward to the Tower of London. Not unusual. Kings traditionally stayed there before coronations. Edward's coronation was set for June, but Richard worked behind the scenes. He had Parliament declare Edward IV's marriage invalid. If the marriage was invalid, the children were illegitimate, not eligible for the throne. Parliament accepted this. On June 25, 1483, Edward V was deposed. Richard became King Richard III. Young Edward went from king to nothing overnight. Richard III needed both boys secured. He convinced Elizabeth Woodville to surrender her younger son. The boys should be together. 9-year-old Richard joined his brother in the Tower. At first, Londoners saw the boys regularly, playing, shooting arrows, being children, but sightings became rare, then stopped completely. By autumn 1483, no one had seen the princes in months. Rumors spread. The princes are dead, murdered. Richard III said nothing. Didn't produce the boys. Didn't announce their deaths. Just silence. The mystery had begun. October 1483, the Duke of Buckingham rebelled against Richard III. He spread a devastating rumor. Richard murdered the princes. The rebellion failed. Buckingham was executed, but the accusation stuck. From that moment, Richard III was suspected of killing his nephews for the crown. The most detailed account came from Thomas. More in 1513, 30 years later. More claimed Richard ordered James Tyrrell to kill the princes. Tyrrell and 2 men entered the prince's chamber at night. They suffocated the sleeping boys with pillows and bedding. The bodies were buried at the foot of a staircase in the Tower. Later, moved and reburied elsewhere. More's account became the accepted version for centuries. Shakespeare's play, Richard III, portrayed Richard as a twisted villain who murdered children. But there are problems with More's story. More was 7 years old when the princes disappeared. He wasn't a witness. His account came from rumors and later confessions. James Tyrrell allegedly confessed in 1502, 19 years later. But the confession document has never been found. We only have More's word that it existed, and More worked for the Tudor dynasty, the family that overthrew Richard III. They had every reason to make Richard look evil. So we can't trust More's account completely, but someone killed those boys. If not Richard, then who? Henry Tudor is another suspect. He invaded England in 1485, defeated Richard III, and became King Henry VII. If the princes were alive when Henry took power, they were threats to his crown. He had motive to eliminate them. But most historians doubt this. The princes disappeared in 1483. Henry didn't take power until 1485. That's 2 years later. If Richard III had the princes alive, he would have produced them when rumors of their deaths sparked rebellion. He never did. The Duke of Buckingham is another possibility. He led the 1483 rebellion. Maybe he killed the princes to destabilize Richard, or to eliminate rivals if he wanted the throne himself. But Buckingham didn't have access to the Tower, and he spread rumors the princes were dead, suggesting he didn't know for certain. The evidence points most strongly to Richard III. He had motive, opportunity, control of the tower, but we don't have proof. No confession, no witnesses, no confirmed bodies. Which brings us to the bones. In 1674, workmen demolishing a staircase in the Tower of London made a discovery. A wooden chest buried deep in the foundation. Inside were two small skeletons. King Charles II was told about the find. He assumed they were the lost princes. He ordered them buried in Westminster Abbey with royal honors. A marble urn was erected. Here lie the remains of Edward V and Richard, Duke of York. But were they really the princes? The bones were never properly examined in 1674. In 1933, the bones were finally analyzed. The results were intriguing. Two skeletons, one approximately 12 years old, one approximately 9. The right ages. Both showed signs of suffocation. Damage to the jaw and skull consistent with smothering. This seemed to confirm Moore's story. The princes were murdered, suffocated, buried in the tower. But modern forensic experts have questioned the 1933 analysis. The techniques used were primitive by today's standards. The age estimates could be off by years. The suffocation damage could be from decomposition or improper burial. DNA testing could solve this. Compare the bones to living descendants of the royal family. But the Church of England has refused permission. The bones are in a sacred tomb. Disturbing them would be disrespectful. So we're left with uncertainty. Probable evidence, but not proof. What if the princes didn't die? What if they escaped? It sounds impossible. But some historians believe it might have happened. Theory 1. Richard III secretly released them. Maybe Richard couldn't bring himself to kill children. Maybe he sent them abroad, gave them new identities, let them live as commoners. This would explain why he never produced bodies, why he stayed silent. But it's risky. Living princes could always return, claim the throne, spark rebellions. And if Richard released them, where did they go? No credible evidence of their survival exists. Theory 2. The younger prince escaped and became Perkin Warbeck. In 1490, a young man appeared in Ireland, claiming to be Richard, Duke of York. He said he'd escaped the tower, been raised in hiding. He gathered support, launched an invasion of England. Henry VII took him seriously enough to execute him. Before dying, the man confessed to being an impostor, a cloth merchant's son from Flanders. But some believe the confession was forced, that he really was Prince Richard. The evidence is weak. The man's knowledge of the royal family could have been coached. His physical resemblance to the Yorks is unverified. Most historians dismiss this theory, but it persists. Theory 3. Both princes survived and lived in obscurity. Maybe someone spirited them away. A sympathetic guard, a loyal servant. They were raised far from court, never told their true identities, lived and died as ordinary men. It's romantic, but implausible. Someone would have talked. Someone would have recognized them. Theory 4. One died, one survived. Maybe Edward died of natural causes. Illness was common. Child mortality was high. Richard III couldn't announce Edward's death without producing a body. That would raise questions about the younger Richard. So he hid both boys, the living and the dead. When the younger Richard also died or was killed, both bodies were buried together. This could explain the two skeletons, but it's speculation. The most likely answer remains murder in 1483, probably by Richard III's order. But we'll never know for certain unless the bones are DNA tested, and that seems unlikely. The mystery endures because it touches something primal. Two innocent children, caught in adult power struggles, destroyed by ambition and politics. Whether murdered or lost to history, the prince's fate is tragic. They were children. They deserve protection. Instead, they became pawns. Then ghosts. The Tower of London still stands. Tourists walk through the rooms where the princes lived, stand at the windows where they were last seen. Ghost stories persist. People claim to see two small figures in medieval clothing, holding hands, walking the tower walls. Nonsense, probably. But the image is haunting. Two boys lost, forever young, forever trapped. The truth died with them, and with whoever killed them. The princes in the tower have become symbols of innocence destroyed, of power's cruelty, of history's unanswered questions. Their disappearance changed England's history. If Edward V had become king, the Tudor dynasty might never have existed. No Henry VIII, no Elizabeth I. One mystery shaped centuries. Richard III's reputation never recovered. For 500 years he was portrayed as a villain, a child killer, a monster. But in recent decades, historians have reconsidered. The Richard III Society was founded to rehabilitate his image. They argue Richard was a capable ruler, loyal, religious, not the demon Shakespeare portrayed. The evidence against him is circumstantial, based on Tudor propaganda. Maybe he's innocent. In 2012, Richard III's skeleton was found under a parking lot in Leicester. DNA confirmed his identity. Forensic examination showed severe scoliosis, a curved spine. Richard was physically disabled, something his enemies mocked. This discovery humanized him. He wasn't a monstrous hunchback. He was a man with a disability who lived through brutal times. Does this mean he didn't kill the princes? No, but it reminds us he was human, complex, not a cartoon villain. The debate continues. Academic papers, books, documentaries, everyone has an opinion. Some defend Richard passionately. Others insist he was guilty. The prince's mother, Elizabeth Woodville, never publicly accused Richard. She eventually made peace with him, came out of sanctuary. Does that mean she believed her sons were alive? Or had she accepted their deaths and chosen survival? We don't know. She died in 1492, taking her knowledge to the grave. Henry VII married Elizabeth of York, the prince's sister, united the warring houses, founded the Tudor dynasty. He never spoke publicly about his wife's brothers, never acknowledged what happened to them. Another silence, another mystery. The bones in Westminster Abbey lie in their marble urn, undisturbed for nearly 350 years. Advanced DNA testing could answer the question definitively. Are they the princes? How did they die? But the church says no. The dead deserve rest. So we're left where we started, with questions, possibilities, but no certainty. Did Richard III murder his nephews? Probably. The evidence points that way. But probably isn't definitely. And history demands precision. Two boys disappeared 540 years ago. Their fate sparked rebellions, ended dynasties, inspired plays and legends. But we still don't know what happened to them. Maybe we never will. Maybe some mysteries are meant to stay mysterious. The princes in the tower remind us that history isn't just facts and dates. It's people. Real children who lived and laughed and played, then vanished, leaving only shadows and questions. If this mystery fascinated you, hit that subscribe button. There are more royal mysteries to explore, more unsolved historical cases, more questions that still haunt us centuries later. What do you think happened to the princes? Were they murdered by Richard III? Did they escape? Let me know in the comments. Next week, we're investigating the man in the iron mask, a mysterious prisoner in 17th century France, locked away for decades, face hidden behind a mask. Identity unknown. Who was he? Why was he imprisoned? Why the mask? You won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, history is full of mysteries, questions without answers, people who vanished leaving only legends. The princes in the tower are among history's most haunting. Two boys, one tower, endless questions. And after 540 years, we still don't know the truth.